Welcome to another episode of Was That Trauma? This is our third episode. We're so excited to be back for another week.
A crazy week. I'm Courtney.
It was a crazy week. I am Audra.
Thank you so much for listening and coming back to our episode 3. We are so excited for this episode. We did have a crazy week this week. We live in Dallas, Texas, and we did have some crazy storms this week. So we have some trauma-causing stories.
Well, it just made us think, right? So on Tuesday here in Texas, I was driving to work. I have to go into the office on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It just so happened that Tuesday morning, we had some furious storms, and I have driven in all kinds of weather. I've lived in Texas, Arizona, and Ohio, so very different types of weather. And I've even driven through extreme snowstorms before, but I had never experienced anything like I experienced on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So I was out at about 5 a.m. I like to try and get to work at about 6. And so I am in a different city than Dallas. So I had to, leave a little early and stop. I did stop, and I had to get a drink from Dutch Brothers, and then since they don't really have food, I did go to Starbucks and get some food and also a tea. But while I was out, I could already tell it was going to be bad. When I was out, I had never seen winds the way I did. There were some extreme winds. There were street signs blowing in the streets. Mm-hmm. The way the leaves were on the ground, they were like floating in midair and like circling. I had never seen anything like that before. And I am in a big SUV, so I have a 3-row Honda Pilot.
Thank goodness.
And yeah, thank goodness. And it's massive. And I felt like I was going to blow over at times. So anyway, I get my drinks and I am driving on the highway. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I was hit. And when I say I was hit. And so they hit the driver's side area, and then it was a truck that hit me. The truck hit me, and then he went flying across 2 lanes of traffic. And then, so he went to the left across 2 lanes of traffic, and then he went all the way back, crossed 3 lanes of traffic to the right, and then down a hill where like the service road is.
He didn't roll. He just slid all the way down.
Yeah, he did not roll, thank goodness, because I mean, that was prime conditions for rolling. That he's very lucky he did not roll. But he came up to me afterwards and he said he hit a puddle. So I'm not sure if he meant he hit a puddle when he skid, or if he hit a puddle and skid into me and then skid even further. That's how I'm going to take it.
Maybe he had bald tires.
I do wonder what his tire condition was like, but I will say, so when I was driving on that highway, so I have traction control and all that, my traction control kept going out, like kept giving me an error message on my screen saying traction control, it couldn't work right now. And so I completely believe the fact that he could have hit a puddle because there was water that I hit in that traction control. Luckily, I was able to stay in control, but even my traction control was giving out. So his could have done the same thing. And then he skid out, and it looked like he was sliding on ice. It looks like an ice incident video whenever you see those cars flying everywhere. And I had never seen anything like that. Initially, I was shocked that I got hit, right? And then it was, holy cow. As you can hear on my video, there's a few holy shits on there.
If you're following Audra on TikTok, she posted the video. Both Audra and I have cameras in our car for situations just like this. So you can go view that video on TikTok and you'll get exactly what happened. You'll see him slide down the hill as well.
Yeah, it was wild. So luckily he was okay. He came up to me afterwards and made sure I was okay. It was really bad weather. So I was like, hey man, you need to just like thank you for checking on me, but you need to get back in your truck. I also probably think he was kind of in shock that he went on a wild ride. I imagine his life flashed before his eyes. But that situation got Courtney and I really thinking of car accidents, as we have both been in a few. I don't know if Courtney's ever caused a car accident.
Nope.
I have.
I haven't caused any car accidents. That morning was crazy.
Very rarely.
My son, we're dealing with scoliosis right now, so he had his MRI that morning. So we woke up probably about 5:30, and we had to leave the house at 6. And Audra and I live about 30 to 45 minutes away from each other, so the storm, I think, hit us after her. That's typically how the storms roll across North Texas. And when we left, we finally left the house about 6:30. So I thought it had already passed, and it did. We were just getting rain, but as we're going through the city, I noticed that my GPS wasn't allowing me to go on the highway. It was like, no, avoid the highway.
Oh,
so I did.
Mm-hmm.
But the area I live in, there was roofs missing. There was sides of houses missing. There were huge trees. There was chunks of roof in the middle of the road. So I don't know if they're done investigating that. I feel like there was probably a tornado, definitely in some areas. There's definitely some spinning of the debris. So
it was wild to see.
Yeah.
If I had not been being safety conscious, I would have whipped out my phone to record what it looked like, because it looked. And the funny thing is, when we were talking and you were like, yeah, maybe a tornado, and I was like, that's funny, because I told Ganlin and I told the people at my work, it felt like driving in a tornado.
Did you look at
I imagined what it would be like, that is what it was like.
Did you look at the footage before the accident to see what you were seeing, if you saw anything? No.
Oh, that would have probably had the.
It might still be there. Yeah,
I should do that. I should grab that footage of what those leaves looked like.
Yes,
and like the street signs in the middle of everything. It was it was unlike anything I had ever seen. So the video that I posted, it does not even. I don't think it even shows a glimmer of how bad those conditions were out that morning. But
welcome to Texas.
Luckily, both of us were okay. We were able to both leave the scene of the accident without having to go in an ambulance or anything. And insurance has taken over. So we're going to get my car repaired. If it's just car damage, then that's fine. I mean, luckily we're okay. I'm really happy with the way my Pilot performed. When we got our Honda Pilot, we weren't necessarily thrilled. Like it met everything that we wanted it to meet. It met all the requirements, but it wasn't like all this jazzy whistles,
bells and whistles.
Of a thing. Yeah.
You got the heated seats though.
That's a requirement for these days. I have to have heated seats, and yes, I do use them in the summer, in the mornings probably, because if I get slightly chill, I'm gonna need a heated seat. But so that Honda Pilot stood so firm when it got hit, because I was maybe going 60 or so. I don't honestly remember. It fluctuated on how fast I was going. I definitely wasn't going the speed limit, because it was too much for that. But
by that, she means below.
He might have been going the speed limit. And if that's the case, then he was going 70 miles an hour. And my SUV stood firm.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. With Texas, especially North Texas, we're not too far from Oklahoma. Oklahoma gets a lot of the bigger tornadoes, but we do get tornadoes around us pretty regularly. I believe our tornado season, really the tornado season is going to be anytime the weather goes from hot to cold or cold to hot, at least in Texas. So I think that's everywhere, but fall and spring is usually our tornado season. So, it's par for the course. I fortunately I don't think I've experienced a tornado. The closest we came was some really bad winds a couple years ago. My son and I had to run to the stairwell, and that was pretty scary. Just you could see out the window, just the stairwell was connected to the parking garage, but the wind was so bad. So we think maybe a small tornado went over, not enough to do major damage to anything. But you could see just wind going through and rain just flying through the parking garage, because the stairwell is right next to the entrance. So I think that's the closest we've been. My son thinks he was in a tornado, but he was not. He was very young, and our sirens go off, and they had all the kids at the daycare go into the bathroom. So, but it's par for the course when you live in Texas, especially this part, unfortunately. So that being said, we were kind of thinking about car accidents, and I think we've, as Audra said,
memory jog there.
Yes.
It's like, oh yes, car accidents. Yes. LOL.
Yes. I think growing up, I was in my fair share of car accidents. I want to say, I know for sure one with my dad, one with my mom, probably a couple with my mom. And then I want to say there was one with Galen, but I could be wrong. But I feel Galen, my brother, I feel like there was something with him. I have to ask him. But
I did not get into any accidents until I was driving on my own. My parents, I don't think I was ever involved in an accident with them. So that's a whole different memory.
And maybe that's the thing. I was terrified to drive. I didn't get my license till I was 18 because of all the accidents we were in, and we were in some good ones. So I was just terrified. So I haven't caused, knock on all the woods, I haven't caused any accidents as an adult person, but I have been.
Let's not judge here.
We're not judging you.
What is it? We look and we don't. We listen.
We listen and we don't judge.
Yeah, we listen and we don't judge. So no judgies. My God.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, but I think that's because I'm a scared driver. I mean, if I'm not scared to where I'm doing stupid things, but
yeah,
I'm constantly, and I think my brother does too. But we're constantly. Well, he told me when I was growing up, just constantly look at your mirrors, and I'm constantly checking every single mirror. What I'm driving, I'm looking behind me, I'm looking in front of me, I'm looking at all the side, because I don't trust nobody, and I'm afraid that they'll hit me. So.
Yeah, I've technically only caused one car accident. Not saying I haven't hit more than one car, because that's different, but I've technically only caused one car accident, and it was a slight fender bender. That one wasn't anything to know. I had a Malibu, and my car got a lot more messed up than the car that I rear-ended, and we were stopped, and we were trying to make a right-hand turn. We were on 35, exited like the Main Street exit, and we were going to make a right on Main Street, and there was a truck in front of me, and I'm looking at the traffic to the left because I'm turning right, and okay, it's clear. This is how I remember it. I'm not saying this is how they recall it, but this is how I remember it. Okay, it's clear. Great. And so I thought the truck in front of me went. Now they could have went like a foot and then stopped again, because I could have swore I saw them start to move and go. And so I start to go, but they were still in front of me. And so I rear-ended them, but it was a very light rear end.
You know what? The only accidents that I've been in have been by myself. Do you remember when we lived in that apartment?
I have only been in accidents by myself.
It was me ruining my car for stupid things. And normally the things that I have ruined my car with weren't driving, it was parking. Because
parking is hard.
It's hard. Well, Audra and my brother lived in this apartment that had an underground parking garage, and I completely hit that pole, and I ruined the front of my car.
Really?
Yes, I did. And funny story, the other time I hit my car, I really messed up the car and pulled off the front bumper was when y'all lived in the other apartment, your first apartment together. When y'all lived there, I parked and I pulled off the front bumper when I backed up. So my stuff was all parking stuff. Not anymore. It's been years, but yes.
Yeah. That's the only, I think, like insurance accident that I claimed where I was the person who, what just happened? No, okay, I lie. Right before I got hurt, or right before I got hit, just like a week or two prior to that, I was in line at the
Oh my gosh.
I was going to pick my kids up from school, and I pull into the school pickup lane, and thought I put my car in park. I turned my car off. I don't think it dinged at me. So is that a lawsuit that I have, guys? I don't know. I don't think it warned me. And so anyway, it was not in park. And I slowly rolled into the truck in front of me.
Oh my gosh.
But
I think the only other
yeah.
time that I was
fun.
we were, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, my aunt, my son, and I went to the coast, and we were in the car. We were literally just talking about the wrecks that I have caused have only been by myself, and it's usually parking or not moving. So while we talked about that, within 5 minutes we got in line to go to Dairy Queen. And we're in line at Dairy Queen, and it is a long line because it's at the coast, and it is hot, and it's not moving, and we're laughing about that. And then all of a sudden, this car rams the back of my car.
Oh.
And luckily,
my God,
I had an SUV. She had a little car. I think she did more damage to her car than she did mine. Like, my car had nothing but a scratch. And but we just kind of laughed because we were like, you see, I didn't even do this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that poor man in that truck didn't see me coming. And it's very embarrassing when you have to go into the same carpool line every day and I see his truck. And anyway, I reported it to insurance. They're going to get their truck fixed. I didn't see any damage, but supposedly there's damage. So I'm going to trust them because they know their truck more than I do. I don't pay attention to their truck. I just didn't personally see it. But hey, you get that truck fixed, baby boo. That's why I pay for insurance. But Lord, but in that, so it's just been a year or two of accidents. So there was that. And
you just got the car you're in right now.
Yeah, I just got the Pilot because right before that, I was going to pick up my kids from an after-school activity. I was at a 4-way stop. I stopped. It was my turn to go. I was turning left, and a lady ran the stop sign and slammed right into me, totaled my car. Yep. And
were the kids in there with you?
No, it was just me. I've only been in an accident. I thought that's what you were saying at first. I have only been in an accident by myself. So whenever I've whenever I've hit somebody or whenever somebody has hit me, which is more the case, normally people hit me and then they run off. I've been involved in so many hit runs.
Yes.
But, so I'm happy when anybody doesn't run away. I mean, that's always nice.
That's why we have the cameras now.
Yeah, that makes things a lot easier. But so she was very apologetic. She was an older lady. She was a grandmother, and those stop signs were kind of new to that zone because the school had just moved. So the old school closed down. They built a new building, and they put those as a 4-way stop. It was not always a 4-way stop. And she flew right through it and slammed right into me. But she was super kind, and she got on the phone with her insurance right away. She didn't even know what to do. I had to tell her. But her insurance took care of me right away. And I'm hoping this one isn't totaled. So my last car, I could not open the door, and this one was having the same issue. And so I am nervous about that. But it's not as bad as before. And I think the Honda is made out of better material than the Hyundai was. So I am hoping that it is repairable because that's
otherwise,
the thing.
Get another Honda. That one did a good job.
It did do a good job. It really did. I'm proud of the job that it did. It did what it was supposed to do. I don't think the outcome would have been the same if I had been in the Hyundai. I really feel like it 1,000% would have been totaled at the speed that he was going at. But I do wonder if I don't even know if I would have rolled down that hill as well.
Yeah, you're pretty high on your car's pretty high.
I don't know. I am happy that I have the Honda because with that Hyundai, I don't know what the outcome of that accident would have been.
Probably would have flicked you right down that hill.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And I definitely probably would have rolled.
Yeah.
But so I've been in a few things, and not too happy about that. But most of the time it's not me causing it. It is most of the time. You were in an accident not too long ago as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I was leaving work. This was, gosh, it was about 2 years ago now. Huh, no, maybe 3 years ago. Everything kind of blends in together.
It does, because it took so long to get resolved.
It took, so I was leaving work and I was entering a busy intersection. But the thing was, is I wasn't entering it yet. I was waiting at the light, and I just sitting there. I don't know if it's everywhere, but I know in Texas they changed the green arrow to also be a blinking yellow arrow when you want to turn left, and a bit like if you're going in an intersection turning left. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, there's people that don't understand that, and so I'm sitting there minding my own business. So it was almost like it's in slow motion, because I was looking in front of me and I see a girl wanting to turn left, and left would have been the side that I'm on. So she would have been coming toward me. And then when I looked to my left, I see a woman driving the speed limit, which is 40, just barreling down the road. And I'm like, uh-oh, I think this is going to be a problem. And then when the person turned left, the person that was going 40 correctly, she had the right of way, but she hit the girl who turned left. That girl spun out, hit the pole, and then the girl that was going 40 hit me. So, so it was great. And my door, I had to go out the other door. I had to crawl across because I couldn't get out.
Classic not being able to get out that driver's side door. You know,
classic doors. So the fire department came and everything, and the girl, that was the girl's whose fault it wasn't, who was going 40. She was doing what she was supposed to do. Who hit me. When she got out of the car, I don't know what happened to her. She had her airbags went off. Her front of her car was all crushed and all over the place, because she essentially hit the person that made the left illegally. She didn't have the right of way, the one that hit her. And then she hit me. So she got hit kind of twice. Mm-hmm. But when she came out, her arm was bleeding and it was like kind of hanging. Like she couldn't move it. And I'm just watching all this because I'm blocked in the car and I'm kind of in shock. I'm like, what just happened? Because I wasn't even driving. I was a parked accident. So I wasn't moving. So when I got the fire department came and everything, they're like, "Are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital?" I was like, yes, I think I'm fine. And I live 2 minutes away from work. So I was like, I just want to go home, actually. So, but in my car would run. It was fine. It was ugly, but it was fine. The door wasn't closing correctly. If it rained, rain was going to get in the car. What was bad was, so we traded insurance and all the things. And I immediately got a lawyer because this involved 3 cars. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. So I'm going to get a lawyer. And
also the lady was trying to let me just pay for your car damage, right?
Yes.
She didn't want to go through insurance.
Yes.
It's like, oh, no.
Yes, there was that. And then as somebody who was just sitting there watching it, the lady who made the turn illegally was trying to say the light was green. I was there. I saw it. Yeah. And so the officer asked me what happened. I said, oh, she ran a yellow blinking light. She didn't have the right of way. Mm-hmm. She was pulling out in the lane and she didn't have the right of way. And the other girl hit her because she was doing what she was supposed to do. And he's like, okay, it's her fault. So he gave her a ticket. And she lived right there by the intersection because she just her parents or whoever they were came out of the house that was right there by the school and walked her home, and they towed her car away like it was no big deal. But the police gave me her insurance because it was on the report. I called my lawyer first, gave them the insurance, and I called the insurance, and she only had liability. So in Texas, I don't think it's every state, but I know in Texas you're required to have at least liability,
right?
Insurance. And the thing with liability insurance, it doesn't cover anything, not very well anyway.
Well, so, it's supposed to cover who you hit, but yes, it doesn't cover yourself.
But only to an extent is what we found out. So so I got a lawyer, and it was, I'm glad that I got a lawyer because it was difficult. My hips were kind of thrown off because of the way she hit the car. So I had to do therapy for that or whatever. But it was really hard. So when I called her insurance, it was months, like 6 months before I could get my car fixed.
Yeah, I remember that was long.
Yes, because the woman that was not her, the one who was hurt and it wasn't her fault, she was in the, I think it was an Altima. But she didn't answer. This is what the ladies whose fault it was. She wouldn't answer their calls, he said, and they needed to get her statement, according to the insurance. So they couldn't cover anything to do with my stuff until she responded. She is from California. When I looked at her stuff on the police report, her stuff was from California, and her car was still brand new. It had the paper tags on it.
Well, technically, my driver's license is still in Ohio. So is she from?
So maybe she just moved here. But she wouldn't call. So finally, my lawyer had me go into physical therapy, and they were like, "We have to wait for the insurance to fix your car." I'm like, "Okay, well, my car is all messed up, but okay." Mm-hmm. So finally, I was persistent. I would call the insurance every single week, and I was like, y'all gonna fix this car because we got into tornado season because they happened in the summer, and now we're in tornado season. It's raining all the time, and I'm having to put duct tape inside my car so it doesn't leak rain.
Oh my God.
And on the outside. So finally the insurance said, you know what? She's not answering. It's been 6 months. Go ahead.
It should have been way before.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I remember the name of the insurance. I won't say it, but I will never use that insurance because that was crazy. But I was able, they're like, you can go wherever you want. Here's your max that we can pay for. We'll pay for your they were going to pay, they paid for my rental, but I didn't get it fixed until around, I think, Christmas time. So the way that it kind of fell, I was going to be out of town anyway. So I was like, whatever, I don't need a rental the whole time. I need it for this time. And that's it. And so I ended up only needing it for a little bit. They fixed the car, and then we got the settlement with my lawyers and stuff. And what I didn't know was all that medical stuff that I did came out of the settlement. So you get the lawyer's fees and the settlement with
See, the settlement should have been, I think, separate than
That's what I think.
The insurance would have paid for. The insurance should have paid for, an amount, and then the settlement should have been completely separate.
So the insurance paid, it was the insurance that they were suing. And the insurance, according to, I guess, liability is $30,000. Don't quote me on this. I'm not an insurance person. But the max I could get was $30,000, and I got $30,000. But that's not what I actually got. When everything was said and done, it was, I think, like $8,000, which is fine. That's still money I didn't have prior to that. And but
that was a lot. It took a long time to get that settled.
Yeah, it took. I think it took a year. I think it took a year, maybe two. You know what? I think it may have taken a year and a half.
It took a long time. That's for sure.
Yeah. But the plus side was all the medical was covered. My car was fixed and I got money out of it. So yay for that, I guess. But yeah, that was a crazy one, I think.
One of, or the first, it could have been the first accident I was ever in. Mm-hmm. I was 16 or 17, I don't know, maybe 18. I was driving age. And I was driving my friend to school. And I say driving my friend to school because I was going to skip that day. I was not going to go.
How nice of you.
I know.
Let me take you to school.
So I'm going to go do this my dad, he said, I feel like as soon as you get a car, you're just never going to go to school. And I was like, no, Dad. I make good grades. And so there was not a thought in my head. And I truly did not believe that I would not want to go to school once I get a car. But that is exactly what happened. I was like not going to school after I got a car. I did graduate, luckily. And I still had good grades. But anywho, so I was driving my friend to school, and I was getting in a lane to turn left just a few minutes, honestly, from the school. So getting in a left turn lane, when a cop pulled out of a Sonic at a decently high speed and hit us on the passenger side extremely hard. And I had a 1994 Nissan Altima. It jolted us into the incoming traffic, and there was an 18-wheeler coming barreling right down. And this is probably at that point, I think it was like 50 miles an hour that was the speed limit on that street. So he was probably going 50 and barreling right down at us. Luckily, because my car was not drivable, it did have to get towed away. Luckily, I was able to drive it enough because it had the metal scraping against my tire.
Wow.
I saw the 18-wheeler come barreling at us, and I was able to maneuver the car all the way across the other side and get to like a business on the other side. So we narrowly escaped. We would have, my friend especially, because it was on her side, it would not have been gone well. We would have been severely injured, if not worse. So we pull into the building. Luckily, a witness stopped, and she saw what happened. The first thing, and this is why I'm saying trauma. This is my trauma story. But the first thing that police officer did was not come to us and ask us how we are, even though my friend just got slammed by his car. He went to the witness and asked what she saw. And when she said she saw that him hit us, he was like, "That's not what you saw."
Was this before body cams, I'm assuming?
I mean, it was somewhere in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I bet it was.
So he was like, "No, that's not what you saw." And then after he told her that's not what she saw, he came over to see how we were. And then another police officer, of course, came to the scene, and I called my dad. My dad came. I was pissed. So I really feel like 16 or 17. I don't think I was 18 yet. No, I wouldn't have been 18 because my friend graduated early. So 16 or 17. I was pissed that this officer hit us and then was trying to be like, "Oh, that's not what happened." So the other officer came to the scene, and he was getting our statements. And honestly, whenever I've been in an accident, I don't fully remember everything, especially right off. Like, I don't remember exact details. And that's kind of me also in everyday life. But so I told him, I was like, I was here, and what happened was he pulled out and he hit me. And then that officer that was taking my statement was like, "That's not where you were."
I'd be like, "There's a witness there, and I saw it, and this person saw it."
I started cursing, and then my dad was like, "Audra, you have to stop. Stop. You have to stop." But I was like, "This fucking he bloodied up. F-bomb, 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 F-bomb." I was so mad because nobody was listening to me. And whatever I said happened was like, "No, that's not what happened." And so that police officer, he did not have his sirens on. Mm-hmm. And the witness said that. He did not have his sirens on, but he tried to say, coming from a Sonic, sir, he tried to say that he got an emergency call, and that's why he was zooming out so fast, and he just forgot to put on his
it's light. Still his fault. It's still his fault.
So our insurance, which we had State Farm at the time, our insurance was arguing with his, and essentially they called it a draw. And I know my mom wanted to get a lawyer.
Sue the city, yeah.
My mom wanted to get a lawyer, and I don't know if she just dropped it or my dad was like, "It's not worth it," kind of a thing. Like, we don't need to get into it with the police or whatever it is.
Let me call the news station.
I was so mad because he legit slammed into me. And so it was my insurance. My friend ended up having injuries. And so my insurance had to, pay for all her medical and all that stuff. And thank goodness that was taken care of. But I could not look at a police officer the same for a very long time. Yeah. And I know there are a lot of great police officers out there because I've encountered a lot of great police officers. Yeah. But that always makes me look a little sideways at somebody. Like, which one are you? Who are you? Who are you? Are you a good one? Are you a bad one? Mm-hmm. Because that accident truly scarred me for life. And just Oh, that just makes me so mad still. Oh, that's not
Right.
what you saw. We had a witness as to what happened, and it still came out a draw. How is that? It's because it was a police officer. That's how.
I'm glad they got cameras now, though. They got cameras in their car, and they got
Get
cameras.
that dash cam.
Yep, they got dash cams and they got body cams. So it's like, it's going to be harder to get through that now. Well, yeah, for now.
Well, I still think that they might do a little finagling to make it seem like they would probably use any little tidbit. Oh, she would turn, or she got in that lane 2 seconds too early, or this and
but
that.
Then that's also why we also have cameras. So
oh my gosh,
well, that's kind of crazy. It's kind of like, where do we go? Are we shitting on police today? No, we won't do that.
No,
but
I have encountered so many great police officers, but that did really taint my memory, and it still to this day affects me. As in, like, I do a double take of, are you one who's like this guy and is trying to save his rear and his pal friend that came to take statements that didn't really even care what I had to say and told me that's not where I was when he wasn't even there at the scene of the crime. He wasn't there when it happened.
Those are the ones that really make it hard to trust them. I worked for a municipality for a while in human resources, so I know plenty of amazing officers and all that good stuff. But I've had my own share. I think my very first ticket was in a city. I'm not going to say the city, but it was close by, and I had just had my license for maybe a year, and I was driving down the road, and this officer all of a sudden speeds up behind me and turns his lights on. So I'm like, well, let me pull over, because I thought I was getting pulled over. So I pulled over to the left. That was the only space I could go. He gets behind me and he's like, move your car. And I was like, okay. So I turned. I turned into a local street and I just pulled over. I'm like, I don't know. This is the first time I've been pulled over.
Right.
He gets out of the car and he says, okay, do you know you were blocking me? And I'm an emergency vehicle. And I said, no, I thought I was being pulled over. So I pulled over. And he was like, well, I'm either going to give you a ticket for speeding, which I was not. He said, or I'm going to give you a ticket for blocking an emergency vehicle. Which one would you like? He said, this is what he said. Yeah, this old man officer, I won't say anything else, but he said, which one would you like? And he said, I'm going to tell you right now that the speeding ticket will be cheaper for you. And again, I think this was before the body cam. So
1,000%.
Yes. So that made me not like them for a little while. I didn't trust them. I still don't. When I see them turn their lights on, I'm like, am I just randomly going to get a ticket again?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And then, I think one of the cities, and I will say the city because it was all over national news, but one of the cities I lived in was Farmers Branch, Texas. And there was a time in the early 2000s, like 2004 to maybe 5 or 6, where that city was making at least, I don't know if it was national, but I know it was making it through Texas because family in other cities far away from Dallas were getting the news that basically Farmers Branch was trying to get rid of illegal people by making it hard for them to rent apartments and pulling them over randomly and to check if they were legal to live and work in that city.
Right.
And I was pulled over multiple times for things that didn't exist. I am Hispanic, and I look it. So I was pulled over. I look it. My brother looks more of it, but my family is light skin. My brother's very dark though, but I was pulled. You know what? I look it enough that I was pulled over and questioned whether or not I was supposed to live here. So, which I'm born and raised in Texas. So there was one time they're like, do you know your light's out? It wasn't. And he was like, I need to see your identification. And they let me go. But it happened multiple times. So I hate driving through that city even now. Like, it makes me uncomfortable. I think when y'all live there, it'd be like clinch to get to your house because I didn't trust them. That has corrected itself. It's been several years since that's been an issue.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, so it's just, those things can be crazy. Yeah. For car accidents, I think the worst one I was in was with my mom. I was in 6th grade. It was during the week, and I want to say we were maybe coming back from a doctor's appointment or something. I know it was a school day and I wasn't at school, but we were getting onto the highway and my mom had a Chevy Tahoe and she loved her little SUV. and it had been raining. And this is why I said the puddle thing. I remember it very clearly. We were getting onto the highway, and it's kind of the on-ramp. It was in Louisville. Right. It was going toward Denton, right where the bridge for Maine is. We were we were either on the other side of Maine coming on or before. I can't remember which side we were going.
Classic place for an accident.
Yes. So we were getting onto the highway. My mother did not take care of her car. Her tires were bald, just bald. So when she hit the puddle, she lost control of the SUV. We rolled across the highway, and she was like, "Hold on," because first we
rolled.
We literally rolled. So we were on two tires for a second. So first we got on. We were on two tires, and she goes, "Hold on," and I'm sitting there, and I'll tell you a story. That's a running joke with my aunt. She will, if she's making a crazy turn, she'll hold on, and I know she's making fun of my mom, but she said, "Hold on," and then like the world is suddenly kind of sideways. And we're going across the highway, the 3 lanes. There's traffic coming, and I'm just like shocked. I'm just sitting there shocked, and then we roll. Oh my God. When we stop, when we stopped, we hit the medium that's in the highway, the cement side wall, whatever, because they're always doing construction. And as soon as we hit it, traffic passed us. So it did. No traffic hit us, which was great.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, but I look over to my right, and I'm seeing concrete. The windows are still intact.
That's good too.
There's concrete, and I look up to my left, and there's my mom just kind of hanging there. She's fine. She's like, "Are you good?"
So casual.
And I was like, "I don't know." She was like, and I'm like, I'm shocked. I think I'm just shocked at this point. And she's like, "Okay, all right, well, we're fine. We're okay. Like, everything's fine." And everything's fine. We are on our side.
That's my worst fear, getting into a car accident with the kids in there.
I didn't cry in that moment. I think when I got out of the car, I freaked out. That, like, once the shock settled down, I was crying. I was like, what the fuck just happened? This man came and ran to the car. He's like, "Are you okay?" And my mom's floating in the air because she got her seatbelt on above me to my left, right? And he's like, "Are y'all okay? Are y'all okay?" And my mom's like, "Yeah, we just need to get out of here." So, like,
yeah, we're just
so
no issues here, please.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember. I want to say I came out through her window, but I may have come out through the back. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Or she may have. I don't know if I got out first, or maybe I don't remember how we got out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we get out, and the car's all fucked up, and I ended up having my neck to this day has problems.
You think it's because of that?
Oh, 100% it is. So my neck, I had really bad whiplash, and we went to a chiropractor for a while to help. But I would get migraines, and I was only in 6th grade, and I would tell my mom, this hurts really bad. Like, really, I think she should have took me to a specialist,
right? And
got MRIs and figured out how to correctly
do that back then.
And figured out how to correctly fix it.
Walk it off, child.
But she did not do that. Neither of my parents. Maybe they did. I don't know. But I wish the chiropractor wasn't the option. Nothing against chiropractors, but I was a kid, and I have permanent damage in my neck. So, my neck's never been the same. I have occipital headaches a lot. When I've had a couple, as I've gotten older, like when I'm younger, I'm like, man, these headaches are crazy. I don't know what this is from.
That's probably why your neck's backwards.
Oh, it is. My neck goes the other way. But as an adult person, I couldn't take the pain anymore. And so I finally went into specialists. I saw a couple specialists, and because it was left the way that it was left for so long, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but I'm not going to use doctor terms, but I have arthritis because bones have been grinding apparently on each other. They're not what they're supposed to be. And then I have like nerves that are pinching, so I get random pain. I started going to the doctor a couple years ago because I kept having shoulder pain, and I was like, what is happening? I didn't do anything in my shoulder. I was like, I guess I got a bad shoulder. They did all sorts of imaging, and there's nothing wrong with your shoulder. And they finally looked at my neck and they were like, but your neck's crazy.
Yeah, all that's connected.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So once in a while I'll have things happen with my neck, but yeah, so that was pretty crazy. And then what was really funny is I bought one of those model cars, and we found a Chevy Tahoe, and I painted it, and then I took a rock and banged the side of it so it looked just like her car. I was like, look. And I had
that trauma?
Yeah, I had that for years. What was even funnier?
Oh my god!
Yeah, that sat in my room for a long time. Like I painted it, did all this hard work on it to make it just like hers, and then I just bashed it with a rock, and I was like, "There we go, that's our car." Because that stuck.
Wow.
And then what was funny was I think maybe only a year, maybe two, only a year or two later. I really don't think it was more than a year. My dad and I, when I moved back with him, we went to Jack in the Box. We got food. We were talking about, doesn't matter. We went to Jack in the Box. There was a woman there, and her eyes were like this bluish, purplish color. And they're like, this doesn't matter. It does. Because what happened was we were so fixated on her eyes.
They're probably contacts, right?
We don't know. That's where we were fixated. We didn't see the lines. Yes. So we're in the car. We're talking about this woman's eyes. We get onto the highway, and my dad looks over at me, and he's talking about something with her eyes. When we look back forward, and it wasn't a long time, maybe he just glanced over, the car in front of him broke. We don't know why. There was no cars around her. And as we spun out around her car, she still sat there. And then when we hit the other wall, then she looked at us and drove off.
What the heck?
So that was scary too. I was like, okay, that's another car accident. There was a point in time where it was like just kind of funny because I was always in car accidents.
That's hilarious.
As a child. So, and I think there were other accidents as time went. That's what I'm saying. I want to say there was one with my brother, or maybe it was just the accidents he was in were terrifying enough for me to be scared of driving.
Yeah, he was in some crazy ones.
He really was. And then, but yeah, so it was all sorts of trauma on my neck and my body.
Dear Lord. Yeah, that reminded me though. So I was thinking I had never been in an accident with somebody else in the car before, but there was one time I was in an accident, and it was actually Olivia, but she's not going to remember. She was in a car seat. Mm. And it wasn't a big one. It wasn't. We were going to Jamboree, and a lady, I think we were turning right. Again, those lights will get you, right? So we were going to turn right. It was red and we couldn't go. And a lady rear-ended us. It wasn't a huge hit. It was a slight hit. It did jolt me, and it did like freak me out, especially because I have my daughter in the car. I feel like I had the Rogue at that time, but I'm not 100% certain. That's the only other time. And I don't remember if there was any damage to my car. I know the lady was very apologetic, and I think she gave me her information. I don't know if I ended up needing it or not. So that's that. But I had forgotten that I had been in an accident with her in there, but that's been the only other time. That is my biggest fear, to be in an accident. Yeah. With my kids in the car. And that is something that I do not want to experience, especially since I do get hit and run a lot. I really do. Do you remember that time? So I had a white Volkswagen Beetle for a while, and
as soon as you said the hit and run thing, that's exactly the one I thought of.
That one caused me PTSD for a while. So when I got that Beetle, I didn't even have my plates in yet, and I had been hit. But in that vehicle, I think I was in like 3 accidents. Yeah. No one could see me in that dang car or something.
And you were a magnet for hit and runs.
I was. There was one lady who stopped. She hit me. She rear-ended me. She was on her way to work. I think it was like going to be her first day, and she was trying to find directions, and it was a whole thing. That by that point, my car was so beat up, I was just like, she did give me her information, but I was like, whatever. I don't even care. I don't even care anymore.
You need to take all this damage.
And well, that was just the rear end. It was like there was something there, but it was slight. But the big hit came when I was on.
Is it Arapahoe one or is it a different one?
It was by where Sweet Tomato was.
It's the Arapahoe one.
So yeah. I think I was on the tollway, right? And I was in a lane that was.
This is a service road.
Yeah, it was a service road. Yeah. It was a service road. So my lane could turn left or go straight, I believe.
Yeah.
And so I was going straight. Well, there's a lane to my right. And I guess she felt like, hey, I'm just going to turn left. And so she slams into me. I mean, she damaged my car hard. And then she, drove off. And I called Courtney and my husband and was screaming. And apparently I was screaming so loud that it was cutting out on the phone. That's how loud I was screaming because I was frightened. And I mean, the lady just, she took off. And so I don't think I filed that. And we just drove around with a busted up car for a while because when I called the police, one, I did file a report and I tried to see if they could pull any camera footage, but I never heard back from them. Never. Yeah. And when I called, they were like, well, you left the scene of the crime, so you can only do, like, you have to file it a certain way or which
is crazy because now there's times where they're like, well, are you injured? Okay, then get off the road. And then they'll wait hours to send an officer.
Right.
That's wild.
Oh, gosh, guys, I've been in so many accidents. So that one was very traumatic as in, it was hard for me to drive down that road. And even now, when I pass by it, I am reminded of that accident, of that person slamming into me. So before I moved back to Texas, so I'm originally from Texas, I moved to Arizona, then we moved to Ohio, and then we moved back to Texas. Maybe a month before we moved back to Texas. It was rainy weather again, also not as bad as it was in Texas the other day when I got hit. But I was driving to work again. So, guys, I think I should be permitted to just permanently work from home because it is a danger driving to work. So I was driving to work and it was rainy. It was a red light. So I was stopped at the red light and a car plows into me. Not a tiny little plow. Like they slammed into me. I don't think they even had their brake on. And so I pull over and a witness pulled over on this one too, luckily. And they did not stop. They did not report it because the police say, okay, well, maybe they pulled over at a different area. And if so, we'll get the report and we'll, and I did call the police and they came out, took my statement. They took the witness statement, all that good stuff. When the witness was there, I was hoping that was the person that hit me. No, it was just a witness, but I'm still grateful. And he stayed with me the whole time. Yeah. The whole time. And he was very sweet, gave me his number and his name and, if I needed anything from him. But that was another hit and run. They slammed so hard into the back of my car. I tell you, it's a danger. It's a danger out there.
It is. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think when I think about like a lot of the accidents, but not all of them, but I think a good chunk of them have been rain. I think rain has been some sort of, it was cloudy and rainy or had rained earlier. Those are the majority of the weather at that time, which I mean, that's pretty common, I guess.
Before that Ohio accident, I hadn't been in an accident in so long. And I was so happy because
you were killing it in the driving. We drove. There was one time where Audra drove here from Ohio. I don't remember what it was for. And I was like, and it was icy and horrible. And I was like, I'll go back with you. But I said, I will not drive in this ice.
I had a grandmother die.
Yes. But I was like, I'll go back with you, but I'm not driving. Yeah. Because I will not drive on ice. And it was icy a good chunk of the way from Texas to Ohio. I was a pro. She really was. She killed it. I was nervous the whole time. But I was like, I feel like you know what you're doing, so I'm just going to trust you. And she did. She did amazing.
I was amazing. I did really well.
I didn't want you to go back on your own. I was really worried about the ice and you being by yourself. That's really what my fear was.
No, she wanted to visit us because we're so.
I literally only stayed 2 days and flew back.
But that's okay. But yeah, there's one other story I want to tell, and it's not a long story, and it's honestly very short. It is also, this might have actually been the first one before the police officer. Aside from me going through the Wendy's drive-through a lot and hitting that yellow pylon all the time when I was younger, I would hit that yellow pylon.
That's why they put it there.
So much.
So you won't hit the building instead.
And I was just like, oh my God, how do I keep hitting this yellow thing? Anywho, but when I was driving, it was on Loop 288, but I was going the opposite side of where the police officer hit me. Or maybe it was 35, but I feel like it was 280. You know what? Who knows? And wherever it was, I was driving. There was an 18-wheeler behind me, and I got in front of the 18-wheeler. Now, looking back, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt of maybe I didn't cut him off, but maybe it was too close for comfort kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe it was like I should have given a little more room, but I did not cut him off. But he was such a bitch and I love 18-wheelers and I love truckers because that is part of who I work with and I know in my current business, and they are normally the safest drivers out there, and I absolutely adore them. But this motherfucker, so I think he was pissed that I got in front of him. He was pissed, and he rear-ended me, but it was a tap. He tapped me. He tapped my bumper. Now he did pull over. And as a young girl, and I probably was 16, as a young 16-year-old, I was scared shitless. So I looked at my bumper. There was like a slight dent, but it wasn't anything major. So I was just like, whatever. And he's like, are you sure? Or whatever.
I'd be like, no, bitch, let me call the police.
Well, I was 16, and you know how I am. I get very nervous. I'm scared. I'm a pretty like timid person, I guess, for the most part, I think, when it comes to that stuff. And so I was just like, well, maybe it was after the police officer hit me, because maybe I was scared that nobody was going to believe me.
Yeah, that's true.
But as a woman, I don't feel like a lot of people believe me in general. Yeah. And so that's a whole thing that you go through growing up as a woman, where does somebody believe you? Do they not? Because a lot of times I feel like when you're telling your truth, they don't listen to you or believe you. So I was just like, whatever. But I will say the company, it was a Schneider trucker. It was an orange truck. And every time I see those orange trucks or whenever I see Schneider on something that I'm dealing with personally, it pisses me off. Yeah. It pisses me off. And I can't. It still pisses me off. I really feel like he hit me on purpose.
He probably did.
He did not like me getting in front of him, so he gave me a tap.
Girl, I would have pulled over, but I wouldn't have got out. But let me go on and call the police, because I don't know if you're fixing to murder me.
I don't.
That's what people do. People do that. They hit people and then they rob
trucks.
Them. I don't trust nobody. I wouldn't trust them. You're more trusting me. I'd be like, no, bitch, hold on. Let me call the police, and then you can tell them why you tapped my ass.
Now, I will say that didn't make me dislike truckers, because I always felt like they were still some of the safest drivers out there. It did make me dislike Schneider. And it did make me feel like every time I see a Schneider truck that I am 1,000% go make sure that fool don't hit me.
Yeah, that's true.
But so many accidents. I don't know if I've gone through all of mine or if there's still some out there. I mean, I know there are still some more.
I have little fender benders here and there, but I think those two are probably the biggest ones for me that scared me. I think when like I said, I didn't get my license till I was 18. Literally, when I graduated, my dad bought me a car. Don't get excited. It was $1,000, I remember, and it was not a great car. It was a 1992 or 93 Mercury Sable, and I didn't have a license, so I was still learning. So my dad, this is a whole other thing, but my
classic Mercury Sable.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, bring back the memories.
when I lived with my dad, that's a lot of other stuff happened, but he was not a very involved dad.
Right.
But out of the two parents, he was the less of the evils. So my dad fully enrolled me in driving school. He took me to maybe 1 or 2 classes. I'll give him a benefit of the doubt. I'll even say 3. And then he stopped. Part of the thing with my dad was he wouldn't come home too really late sometimes. And so he just stopped taking me. And this was at 16. So I didn't get my license. It wasn't going to happen. If I'm not taking the class, I'm not showing up, they're not going to give it to you.
Yep.
I got a permit, but that's it. And then we did nothing with it. He wouldn't show me how to drive. So when I turned 18, I graduated. They gave me the car. And I was like, okay, but I don't have a license. I don't know how to drive. And he's like, yeah, I'll show you. I'll teach you. He took me on maybe 2 lessons, and then he stopped coming home, and I had a job that he was taking me to work on the weekends only. And then during the week, I had a full-time job because literally the day after I graduated, I had a regular job, and then I worked weekends because I liked money. So I had a ride because my friend worked at the same place during the week, but on the weekends for my weekend job, I didn't. And it was fine because my dad was home, I thought, and he said he would take me. So there was one morning I woke up and I was like, Dad, where are you? Like, I have to go to work. And he's like, you have a car, so take yourself. And I was like, I don't have a license. He goes, well, I don't know what to tell you. You have a car. And he hung up on me. So that was the beginning of a rough couple years, I think, with him. So it's like when I turned 18, he just was not a great person. So he wasn't before that, but
gosh, child, what are you getting out of my hair?
That's what it felt like. It very much felt like I was a burden for so long, and now I was more so one. So, so
you'll never be a burden to me.
That's a whole other conversation. As a matter of fact, I think we were talking earlier, and I was like, "Oh, if you ever want me to go away, just say that."
If you ever don't like me anymore, you could just let me know. But we have that story between us when we lived together prior too. But we can get into that at a different time.
But
so much trauma we have.
I know. But so I was like, I don't know. I just thought, this is my job. I have to be there.
Right.
So I fully got into this car, not knowing how to drive, with no license and no insurance. And I drove from Farmers Branch all the way to Arapahoe and the tollway, because that's where I work.
Intersection. Yes. I'm gonna fuck up.
There used to be an Oshman's there, and I got that job because Galen knew people who worked there.
Did y'all work there at the same time?
No, but he knew people who worked there. And then when I started working there, 2 of my other friends started working there. But anyway, I go there.
Oshman's, that's classic. That would have been the job to have.
Oh, it was.
Oh my God, you're so popular. You had to be so popular.
It was great. I was this cute little 18-year-old, and I was pretty, and I did my makeup and all the things, and I sold shoes, and I know nothing of shoes. I lied so much.
Oh my God, these shoes are the best.
Yes. And these old men, these old dirty men, they just ate up everything I said. They were like, I'm looking for a new golf shoe. I'm like, oh my gosh, let me help you with that. And then I would fully go to the shoes, and as I'm telling them about that, I'm just reading, I'm like, this one says, like, it does this. And so I think that's going to be good, but I would go with this one. It was not commission, but I was just like, whatever, you don't have to buy the expensive one, buy this one. I would always go for the one in the middle, so they didn't feel like I was trying to upsell them, and they would buy it.
It's a good strategy.
But I drove there. I almost hit multiple people in cars.
Oh my God.
Because I didn't know what I was doing. So I drove that whole length down Beltline, and I showed up to work bawling my eyes out because I was crying the whole way there. And this was Beltline in the morning, so it wasn't horrible. The drive home was horrible.
Oh my God. Were you breaking down in the car?
So I get to work, and there was a guy there that I worked with, and he goes, what's wrong? What's the matter? And I was like, I don't have a license. I don't know how to drive. I just drove here. And he was like, why did you just, I didn't have a ride. And I was like, and I don't know how I'm going to get home. I was bawling.
Yeah.
But he was great. I want to say he followed me home. I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
Because I was terrified. Maybe somebody drove my car, but I don't think so. I think he just made sure to follow me home.
Right.
But yeah, that was that story. So, and then I would keep doing it. I would just I didn't know how to drive. Nobody would teach me, so I drove.
So you learned.
I drove illegally for very, very many weeks. And then I finally was ready, I thought, to take the driver's test. And so I show up there with my Malibu. Not my Malibu, I'm sorry. I was thinking about your Malibu. I show up there with my Mercury Sable, and I'm in the line to take the driver's test.
All by yourself?
All by myself. I didn't know. And so
my daddy went with me.
My daddy wasn't around. So, but I show up there, and the state trooper comes out. He takes a couple looks at my car, and he comes to the window. He goes, "Those are illegal tags. They're not real, and you could go to jail right now." I said, because it wasn't in my name. I said, "This is my dad's car. Do you want me to call him? I can tell him these are illegal." And he goes, "No. Can you just take the car home? Don't drive it again until it's fixed." I go, "Okay." And so I couldn't take my test that day. So my dad, I think, ended up having to get the legal tags and figure that out.
So it had something to do when he bought it. Like they didn't have
real
tags.
No.
Oh my God.
I think it was the emissions tag. I don't think it was the registration, because once upon a time in Texas, you had to have your emissions and your registration tag. And I think it was the emissions, which made sense because only a couple weeks after I got my license, the car just started smoking all over the place. So I literally took it to a drive time while it was smoking, black smoke coming out. And I said, "Will y'all take this? Your commercial says you'll give $300 for any car." And they said, "All right."
Sure.
Yeah, so that was my learning how to drive.
Wow.
What a mess.
I did get the driver's through the school. I took driver's ed through the school, and so you would stay there and do that.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, it was fun. There was a lot of times he left us by ourselves, He was like, "Okay, I'm going to go do my thing." And we're just sitting there at McDonald's. All of us are just eating, and we're just waiting for him to come back.
I think gone are the days.
He was a coach, and he also did things with his church. There's a lot of going to his church and doing stops, and he was doing like there was a lot of errands run for this man. And I'm not saying he was a bad guy, because I think he was actually a really nice person, but probably shouldn't have left us by ourselves at certain times. But hey, he's got shit to do too. But I learned to drive through the school. So
yeah, I don't know if they do that anymore. I think it's a liability issue.
I don't think they do it anymore either. My nephews are going through outside. My sister did driving through Sears.
Mm-hmm. That's where mine was. Yeah, that's exactly where mine was. Yeah,
and mine was through the school. But I'm so excited that it was through the school. That was a really great experience. I did my test. My permit test through there. It was a whole. Mine was a pleasant experience.
That's wonderful. I love that for you.
Now, and my dad did go with me to get the permit, but maybe he didn't go with me when I was 16 to get it, but he might have. I can't remember if he went with me when I was 16 also, and then didn't go when I was 18 to get because back then in Texas, when you're underage, and I don't know if it's still like that, but your license is a different rotation. It's rotated a different way when you're underage, so they can quickly tell you're underage. Yeah. And then when you're 18, you can go get one that makes it not stupid.
It still stays that way until you're 21.
Ooh, 21. I think it changed when you were 18 back then.
Yeah. Now it stays vertical until you're 21, and then it'll flip horizontal. Well, you got to get it flipped. But
that was my week. My week was dealing with an accident and insurance and just the pains that have come along with that in my body. But it could have been so much worse.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I am very thankful that it was not. And I recommend getting a dash cam. And if you follow me on TikTok, go to my TikTok shop. Go to my TikTok shop. And I have the one that I bought myself and my family linked in there. I think it works great. And it's only like $20 or $30. And it does I thought the picture was pretty good for $20 or $30.
Yeah, it's really good. I really want to get a second one to put on the back.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
It does have a back camera, but especially if you have a longer vehicle, you can't see out of it as well.
Yeah, it has a second camera that can rotate toward the driver, which I think is fine. I think especially if you do get in an accident and you weren't distracted, it's perfect to show that you weren't a distracted driver. But you can also kind of take it and tilt it to a different direction. If you put it, I have mine on the passenger side, so I'm not looking at it. But if you have it on the driver's side, you can face it toward you in case you get pulled over. You'll have that evidence.
Yeah.
But I really want the same one. I want to put it in the back in case somebody hits me.
The link is in my TikTok shop, Courtney.
Later goals.
But anyway, I recommend, no matter where you get it from, I recommend that you do get one, and you do not have to pay a large amount for it to actually work and work well.
Yeah.
So that's what I have for this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've covered a lot. I think it was kind of when she said she got in a wreck, I was like, well, looks like we got content now.
We didn't even have to think about that one. We've been in plenty of wrecks that have caused us trauma, and so that was a perfect episode to get into. Follow us if you're not already on all the podcast apps. We are available everywhere, so you should be able to get us on Apple or Spotify, wherever you want to listen. We are available. Please also follow us on socials. It's either going to be Was That Trauma or Was That Trauma Podcast. And we are on TikTok. We are on Instagram, Threads, and we are on YouTube. We don't post too much on there, but we are going to try and get better at that and do some clips. And I have a wonderful nephew, and Courtney has a wonderful son. That's the same person, by the way, who wants to help us out with our podcast some. And so hopefully we'll have some future surprises coming to you guys.
Yes, my son is in a program with his high school for digital design. He's working on game design, but in doing that, he also, when he graduates, he'll have a certification, I believe, in graphic design. So when he heard we were doing the podcast, he was thoroughly annoyed that we did not ask him for help on making any of the images. Right. So he wants to be involved in that, and he thinks he'll be a guest, and I'm curious what trauma.
I'm gonna go, hey,
what did your mother do?
Yes, please tell me about all this mother. Let me kick her out of the room and tell her when you speak about your mother trauma.
Tell our dear listeners what your mother has done. But yeah, so he's fantastic. I think there's things that he kind of wants to do, which is great. You know, it's a family affair. My brother helps set up our mics and gets us prepared when he can, and it's really exciting. And but we will record. We're just as we've said last time, we're still working through this. When we get a good setup, I think we'll be ready to record and get some content that you can watch, or at least get some clips out there. If we can't get full episodes, we can at least put some clips of what's going on. I have
not said this before, so this is live. What I would like to do is, because on TikTok we can go live on our account.
Oh yeah.
And so one day I would like to do a live as we're recording as well. And so you could view it, and you could have the audio available also later. So I think that could be neat.
It could be a lot of fun. Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, we could definitely do that. But yes, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you leave a comment. And as always, if there's
rate us,
say we're amazing, please. But as always, if you have any ideas of what you'd like us to talk about, we're always happy to look those over. And
wasthattrauma@gmail.com.
That's right.
We will talk to you guys next week. Be safe out there.
Bye.